I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome to the Star Trek Picard After Show. We are talking episode 6 of season 1, The Impossible Box. And one of the most impossible boxes to open. I have been completely unable to in all my time here at AfterBuzz. Flobo Boys!
Hey, what's up? I'm Dead Enigma? Is that what it is?
You're dead inside.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back. I was out last week, but I'm back, baby, for a brand new episode of Picard.
An even more impossible box, a tough nut to crack, as we say here in the business. Happy Go Jackie himself, Frank Moran!
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, look at him. And this is a first.
That is impressive.
This installment, all for the fellas. Sorry, ladies.
Keep it classy.
Take a number. Unfortunately, our friend Nikki Bailey Comedy, I think she had lunch in Wuhan province, and I think she's got the corona. So we'll do a montage next week of some of our favorite clips. No, she's just a little under the weather. And Angelica, you're not able to be here, and I told you, if you don't come, I'm only going to refer to Picard as JL all night. So, if that infuriates you, you can send your hatred to A-Tray online.
Cool.
In any case, a lot to talk about. Now, you guys didn't get to... I want to give you each 1 full minute apiece to talk about last week's episode.
Yeah.
So let's talk about episode 5 really fast, Flobo.
Yeah, 1 minute or fast. I can do both. It was definitely interesting to me. I would say it was one of my least favorite episodes of the season. But I don't mean that in a bad way. Because
I do.
I don't mean that in a bad way.
I hated it, but not in a bad way.
way.
It was interesting. I understand the idea of going off the grid and going undercover, because in some of the episodes of The Next Generation, there was a whole like motif with fantasy and how Picard goes in the holodeck and pretends to be that detective. I get it.
Dixon Hill, yeah.
That's it, Dixon Hill.
I would have welcomed a Dixon Hill episode.
I thought we were going for that direction.
That would have been great.
And all the characters have the thing to call back. But
if he'd been in costume as Dixon Hill, it would have been more believable. Sorry,
true. No, you're absolutely right. But it was him in an eye patch with a French accent, which my Star Trek knowledge is pretty limited. But I thought French was rendered useless or almost archaic.
Well, that did come up on the show.
And I thought that was kind of weird. That's the choice he went with. No.
Well, he was just going through his Project Valkyrie phase, if you remember the Tom Cruise movie. Frank, I feel like you haven't been here for a few weeks, but I don't know if that's even true. Have you ever been on this show?
He's on the couch.
Have you done this show yet?
Is this the Legend
I
of
feel like I
Tomorrow?
haven't seen you since Discovery Season 1, but maybe
true.
I'm wrong. Your thoughts, last episode and sort of where we are at heading into episode 6 of the show.
There's been a lot of wheel spinning, and I feel like as we talk about this episode that aired tonight, we'll find out that, boy, this season could have been much more shortened and much more exciting.
Yeah.
Last week's episode, again, Raffi, continue to, I don't care about her life.
Nope.
Don't care about it. Don't
That
even know
continues
anything
this
about her.
week.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't care about any of that at all.
Raffi.
The 7 or 9, fine, but it's just it's like a glorified name check, and that's kind of disappointing. And you're telling me that nobody is going to recognize Jean-Luc Picard, who just recently had a meltdown at an interview that aired across the universe.
Yeah.
No one's going to recognize
That's
him.
exactly what I
Picard
said.
has 2 eyes. He has 1.
That's exactly what I said on this show last week. He's quite probably at least the most famous human in the galaxy, and he just walks right in, and nobody's like, "Hey, wait a minute, you think that's that guy?"
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's like if Jim Kirk had walked in 80 years earlier, you would have known who it was.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that in the 24th century, disguises haven't evolved more than just an eye patch and a
And a
beret.
feather.
Yeah.
That was the
Good
moment
man.
that I liked is when Seven said you need a feather, because you know what, she was right.
Oh, yes.
Rio's pimp costume, I had no problem with.
Yeah.
All of my complaints are about Picard. All right, let's bring it on around to the Impossible Box. And I think this was the best episode since the premiere. I think if this had been episode 3 and episodes 2 through 5 were condensed into one episode, man, this might be one of my favorite shows of all time. Instead, the pacing, as I just said a few moments ago in the chat, which, by the way, if you're in the live chat, Flobo is there. He will bring your thoughts, your criticisms, your haterade, as someone mentioned. He'll bring it all on the air. I think that, it's unfortunate, the pacing. I think that we realized at some point that we have 10 episodes. We'd be better off with 8, but at this point, we should have been episode 3, maybe 4, and instead this was episode 6.
I hate to be that guy, but will this be a show that would benefit more for being like an extended feature, or like 4 episodes versus 8 versus 6 versus 10? I feel like there's a sweet spot that we're kind of missing it for.
I'll be interested of anyone that I know that waits for the show to end and then they do their 7-day free trial of CBS All Access and they binge it.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be a better experience.
Sure.
Mandalorian, to jump universes, that as a weekly show, I was just so excited each week, and it was good. I liked that everybody kind of had to watch it to kind of stay on the up and up. This, I was just like, man, this is going to be a better binge. Yeah. I think. Anyway, let's know in the chat what you think. But let's talk about this episode in general. Frank, overall, I think we got the most advancement of story that we had since the first episode. And I'm saying that's more advancement of story than the previous 5 or 4 episodes. So episodes 2 through 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's always any feature for Star Trek. It's always fun assembling the gang, getting the old gang back together again. Always great, but not great when you take so long to get it all together.
I think in Star Trek 3 it takes 5 minutes to get the crew together. Yeah.
So very nice. So I mean, this episode overall, I mean, I did enjoy the progression of plot. Did enjoy just at least the scenes of Picard looking back upon his time about the Borg. But then with that same venomous hatred that he still has from First Contact, which I'm like, okay, I thought we kind of dealt with some of that in First Contact, but maybe not. And then just the way that he's able to see the Borg in a different light thanks to Hugh.
Yeah, I did agree with that. Overall, Flobo, as someone again who is relatively new to Star Trek, your thoughts on this episode and watching it all unfold?
Yeah, I'm still kind of on the fence about the crew. I do like Raffi, I do like Rios. I'm not a big fan.
You're half right.
I'm not a big fan of Elnor as much. I'm not really sure what his role is going to be. I hope there's a big thing where he gets to slot in there. It was pretty solid, and it was really missing something that I had something this week that I thought was missing in other weeks, and it was a sense of urgency. Everything else was like, oh man, my friend, we're going on this quest. It literally said the word quest, which is always weird when someone says quest and things. But now we see why that's important, and now we're getting some breakthroughs on the Soju side and what that means, the stakes, if you will.
But I feel like Elnor's getting a bad rap because I think the potential for that character exists.
Oh yeah.
I don't think the show has done him justice.
No, I think that they've introduced a character with tremendous potential, but then they've kind of used him for one-liners and sort of the Spock in Star Trek like 4 and 5, where he was just completely out of his element and he was basically there to say things like double dumbass on you, and it's just like, wow, this guy sure doesn't know what he's talking about.
Did I end but again?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Come on.
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking of, was that moment. And let's talk about Agnes for a minute. You want to talk about a character that I think I wish I'd sold all my stock in her a couple weeks ago, before she killed Maddox.
Yeah.
And then, is there anyone, and answer this in the chat, whether you're watching live or in the archive, and you want to leave a comment on the archived video on YouTube, is there anyone who was hoping for any kind of sparks between Agnes and Rios? Anyone? If there's anyone, I'm going to call them a liar. But let me know.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Put your hand down, sir.
But that's just because you're a masochist, Frank. You just like to put yourself in situations. Yeah.
That really ticked me off. And look, I am not against love in space. Okay, I just felt like it came out of nowhere after this whole traumatic thing, and Rio should have some sort of perception and be like, hey, you don't seem on the level. Who cares? I'm all sweaty and stuff. So I didn't buy it. I don't really see the chemistry there, and it totally made it weird after she just killed the dude. You know what I mean? I don't want to see her get lucky. I don't know.
Yeah,
her killing Maddox. The thing that was frustrating about that is, if you would only know what they showed me, you really have the time to tell him he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell him and have a conversation? So the way that they handled that death frustrated me.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I wonder if we were able to answer the question as to whether or not in space no one can hear you moan. But that's fine.
But then for Elnor to go like, oh, something's off between you two. So I mean, I would not have thought that anything that happened, their little, warp speed booty call, I mean, it didn't seem like any kind of weirund tension. So it was.
It's the name of my podcast.
Eleanor's going like, "What's
Warp Speed Booty Call?"
Yeah, that's right.
That should be the name of this show.
I want to give a shout out to Christopher Daniels in the chat who says, sometimes picking up the pace, talking about the pace of the show and the series, sometimes picking up the pace ruins the payoffs, which is the main issue I have with Discovery. Not enough screen time to building new relationships or situations. Thoughts about that?
Well, that is a traditional Star Trek fan complaint about Discovery, about the good J.J. Abrams movies, that they're too exciting and too fast-paced, and that there's not enough sitting in a room talking about what you're going to do, which, I think you see the most in Next Generation. And it's all budgetary. You needed to fill out of your 45 minutes. You had to fill out, probably 5 of those minutes sitting in a room and talking and not using any special effects. Right. So I think that sometimes Star Trek predominantly really, if you think of all the hours of Star Trek, it's mostly a TV series. Yes, of course there's movies. It's always had some kind of budget limitations. This show, you feel like it doesn't have it. Discovery, in no way do you feel like they're limited in any way. I think they can tell much faster stories here. And I think we don't have so many characters. Usually the crew has so many characters on. Like Discovery, you can make that point. There are a lot of people on that ship that they want us to know better. There are not a lot of people we get to know, and one of them is Raffi. We already know her too well. When we didn't know anything about her, we still knew too much about her. So I would like to know less about her.
Hot take. Yes.
It's not that hot. No. It is not that hot.
I'm on board,
it's just a take. I don't know why.
You know what? I got to give it to her because...
Is it because you're a Law & Order SVU Season 1 fan? Is that really what it is?
Actually, I was here at CI. I love Criminal Intent. Vincent D'Onofrio was amazing.
Wow.
No, well, here's the thing. We have this character who calls him GL, and it's all the things you don't like about it, but you're in this random... I'll say random. I'll take it back. You're in this different kind of adventure, and she really is the pure flavor of this, because this is not Picard from The Next Generation. This is a whole other beast. So I want to see some interactions, and I want to see why we should work with him in the past and why she calls him JL. That's what drew me in. I'm not saying she's the best character ever. Don't put me on trial. I'm just...
I never want to see the episode where we find out why she calls him Jay.
I
never want to see that episode.
We're gonna get to spend time with her son. We're gonna get to see the baby born.
I hate the son character.
Yeah,
I got so mad.
The son character's not great, but if my mom was that annoying, I would probably be pretty chilly to her. I'm just saying. But in this episode, she's carrying around the bottle of alcohol, and I'm just like, all right, could you go with something more cartoony than that? How about you come up with something cool and space-like? I don't know what that is. So she's like vaping, and I'm like, all right, so she has technology from 2019. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just was almost like, I wish she was doing something more futuristic.
Right. Only do drugs if you look cool. You don't look cool vaping, kids.
No, exactly. Keep that in mind.
And I don't even know, like her boozing, and then I guess the next morning, whatever the time frame is, from Rios putting her to bed to waking her up with some coffee the next morning. She just seems awfully perky for somebody that he was sleeping off a bender. I'm like, okay, so that's interesting. I guess I lost my 2 bars of Latin. I'm like,
yeah,
all right, you're really functional, which I guess is a good thing, I suppose.
All right, I'll still make my Raffi t-shirt. Jeez.
Yeah, that's why they call them functional alcoholics, because they're able to negotiate, interstellar space deals. That sequence annoyed me so much when she calls like her old friend, and she's like, well, all right, I guess if we're here anyway, so if you don't want an international incident, I still feel like her friend should be like, no, you should really go home. Because I am staying out of this.
Hold on. I gotta say this. Here's this entire show of Picard trying to use his charms and him getting slam dunked on. Here's a time when someone actually has a successful thing. You just don't like it? You're just over it?
No, I can't believe that her friend, air quotes, would have been won over by her at all.
I think so.
I did like how she ended the call with "Never call me again."
Yeah,
and I hope that Raffi also never calls us again. In that, if she's inexplicably written off the show, like Tiger on Brady Bunch, the dog that they had, and all of a sudden they didn't have it, that's fine.
Right.
If she's gone next week and there's not even a hey, whatever happened to Ref, that's fine.
So you're fine that Picard claps at her and be like, "You lost a friend. Good job."
Yeah, if they want to just put a different character in there, you want to add Poochie, that's fine. I'm using 2 dog examples.
Exactly. Scrappy Doo. Make it a trifecta.
Man.
How
You know
much
what? You've really nailed it. She really is the Scrappy Doo of the show.
Oh my God.
Because I
Just
couldn't think of
Raffi.
because nobody likes Scrappy Doo. I'm sorry, what were you going to
yeah.
say, Frank?
Oh no, I was how many episodes
You were gonna
of Next
defend
Generation?
Scrappy-Doo.
Oh no, Scrappy Doo, forget Scrappy Doo. Puppy Power. Nope,
God.
nope. But how many episodes of Next Generation would have been improved if anytime anybody else on the crew did something successful, Picard just stood up and gave him a slow clap.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Oh,
Just-
good for you.
I'm like,
Yeah, where's that meme? Because there's like the one meme is the where he's sort of exasperated on the bridge. Like we've all seen that Picard meme, and to have like a good little.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about what was good about this episode.
Raffi. Okay, go ahead.
You might get put in time.
I'll go, guys. Like, subscribe, comment.
So just overall, I agree with what you're saying, Frank. I thought it was the strongest emotional connection we've had to JL in the entire series. And again, remember that's Angelica's fault that I called him that. The closest we've been to him, really been able to identify with him, getting those little flashbacks. And the idea that, yes, he beams aboard a Borg cube and he has had, I don't know, probably 30 years at this point to be okay with it. But then you're not okay because you're actually in a Borg cube. And it's sort of an interesting thing that Hugh says towards the end of the episode. Oh, yeah, you'd never seen the Queen's room before, but of course you knew about it because you were part of the collective and you knew everything. So, I mean, I think they do a really good job of helping us understand just how difficult that is for him to be there. I loved their interaction. I thought it was great to see how excited he was to see Hugh, how much he appreciated the work that they were doing. And I think that just from a story standpoint, they did a great job of everybody just kind of looking at him. And at one point, somebody even saying "Hey, Locutus, what's up? Hey, man, how you been?
Yeah.
We got to pick up basketball. You want to join the Borg basketball league? Come on!" It was basically. I mean, that might be exaggeration. But just sort of your thoughts, Frank, on that specific aspect of this episode.
What I liked is, for as much as this show has been so slow paced, the worry that Picard beaming over to the Borg cube, we're gonna have to wait for a whole episode until he finds Hugh at the end.
Yeah.
I was glad that things happened very quickly about that. I did like that. The scene of him in his ready room, so to speak, on the ship, looking at himself as Locutus, and the way the camera framed that shot, I thought was really a highlight
Agreed.
for the show, for the episode.
And in your rewatch, or not your rewatch, but you're diving into Next Generation. I can't remember what your answer was to this. You've seen him as Locutus of Borg. You've seen those episodes.
Yes, I
Okay.
have, yeah.
So I'm just curious, though, just sort of watching that, whether you had seen it or not, I think it would have still been, it would have been powerful, but I think you can really identify with it more having seen those episodes. What did you think about watching that interaction with Hugh?
I'm kind of glad everything was amicable. I was kind of nervous that it would be like a double switch or some sort of reactivation. There's always this hanging cloud of Picard used to be Borg, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I was worried that they would have gone through that bag of tricks in this episode, but it didn't happen. War here in the chat says make Picard Borg again so he can be strong again, for example. But yeah, I was on board.
I don't know that. I mean, I can see that point, but making him Borg again would not make him stronger.
No, I don't. But
he as an individual would be much weaker. But yeah, I did like. I don't know. It's completely within character for Hugh to have been that excited to see him, and
True.
just the fact that they hadn't seen each other. I thought that was nice. That's why I'm glad that the character was included in this series. Just really for that interaction. I mean, it was fun for us to see him too. But I thought that to Frank's point, I wasn't quite sure how long it was going to take. He's only there for 24 hours, so I'm like, all right, so at 23 hours and 30 minutes, he's going to finally be like, "Oh, Hugh, I only got a half hour. I got to try and get this done."
Yeah.
So I thought that was good. The other portion of the main story, I just have to say how relieved I am that Narek Soji love story is over. I had a lot of trouble just with this one. Just the idea, like, I get it. She's 39 months old, so maybe that's why she's able to be a sucker for this guy. But it's just everything that he says to her. I'm like, don't they have I don't know, isn't there a futuristic version of Dr. Drew to warn you about, like, if a guy says this,
sassy best friend?
Yeah, like, come on. Yeah, where is it? Well, sassy best friend's probably your dead sister, let's be honest.
I know, right?
So sadly, and it's just like, oh, what a hateable character, which he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I still like him more than his creepy sister, though.
True.
And that is my question to both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Whose interaction annoyed you the most in this episode? Is it Narek and his creepy sister, Narek and Soji, or Agnes and Rios? Flobo?
Wow, that is an all-star
That's a lot.
lineup.
I know.
You know what? I've never liked the Narek and sister narrative. It
Nope.
always seems like they were talking at each other.
Yep.
Very, very, no offense, CW. You know, like, I'm evil, and here's the reasons why I'm evil. A box, I don't care. Oh wait, the scene revealed the box. So that's the one I was kind of rolling my eyes the entire time. But yeah, I don't want to see Agnes.
I love that because you mentioned the CW to apologize.
Yeah,
the best is going to be when Frank is like, Frank's going to be like, well, to me it felt a little WWE. Sorry, Flobo.
No, please leave me.
All right, of those three, what did you think, Flobo? Who's the worst?
They would be Narek and
They have the sister's so bad. I don't even know her name. I don't want to know her name. I hate her so much.
No idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole Federation side that we haven't explored, and I guess we'll explore towards the end of the season.
You know what? Season 2, I think. I think we'll touch on it at the end, but I think that's going to be the big bad of season 2 is going to be the Federation. So I think it was good. I was glad to see Soji finally putting it together. It took 6 episodes, which, it took her sister 2 minutes, I think, into the series. Yeah. Like, she got activated 2 minutes into the series. So we've been waiting a long time
totally
for this.
Nitpick though, that scene was super long. 37 months, 37 months, 37 months, 37 months.
39 months.
39 months.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You got a little clerks in there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. In a row.
Understand it, exactly. No, I know. I think it was good at first. I'm like, okay, we get it. Come on. If I get it, you should get it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, this one in the frame, maybe this one is. And what was she going to do if it was like 41 months?
Right.
Oh, thank God.
Right.
I'm 2 months older than I thought I was. And I think that some of the reveals were interesting. One of the things that I found troubling, though, is Hugh, when he was talking to JL, again, blame Angelica, when he's saying that like a couple weeks after she got here, this Romulan spy who pretended not to be asking about her came around. Well, if you're that worried about that guy, why don't you warn her? Why don't you keep an eye? You know what I mean? Like, you knew there was something not on the up and up about this guy.
Yeah.
I think anybody who was in a room with him should have known it, Even the other Romulans who were, like, guarding that room that they went to, which we'll talk about, were just like, So, I don't know. But I think that, I don't know, maybe Hugh doesn't have as much humanity in him as he thought. He's just like, yeah, it just seems suspicious, but I figured, why not?
I still have an issue with how, given that a kill squad went to Picard's villa, tried to kill him there. He gets on the ship and takes off. That he's able to get to the Borg cube, contact the Federation, get this diplomatic credential set up for himself, and is able to get on there without any fuss.
Did you want like a space dogfight or something? Like,
well, I would figure if these Romulans have been so after Picard, that him to get onto a ship that's basically controlled by Picard, but has a small contingent of this other group doing the Borg reclamation project. How is that happening?
I do agree in principle, and I think that is. I'm going to assume that came up in the writer's room, and that's why they went with this angle of you're specifically, approaching Hugh about the Borg reclamation project. You're not looking to get into the artifact to, do anything other than talk about this sort of, I guess, compared to like Wounded Warriors for former Borg, you know what I mean? It was like, it's like, all right, it's like a charitable mission. And I think that says just how deep the conspiracy is, how far below the surface it is. I think the people at the top involved in the reclamation project are not involved in what Soji is and, whatever the plan is for her. But yeah, no, it's a very valid criticism, but I think that they at least attempted to address it, which, I think sometimes on some shows they're just like, it's fine.
Starcher has a question for Frank. It says the fuse would be in the next episode, Frank?
What's
The
that?
who's?
The fuse?
The fuse?
The Fuse.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Jonathan Frakes. Well,
Yeah.
we're going to get number one and Troy.
Yeah.
And their offspring. However many.
We
of those
saw.
might be.
We know that
There's
there's
a
at least
son.
one boy
Yeah.
from the trailer. Yeah. Yeah. We will. So we will definitely see him next week.
Imsadi.
Yeah. So what do you think about the way that Narek is pushing Soji in this episode, Flobo? I mean, do you think that she, despite all the red flags, she's confused, but just so desperate to find out what's going on that maybe she doesn't realize, one, what a creep this guy is,
Right.
two, clearly this is why he's here and this is why he's pretending to care about
You
you.
hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's just one guy who's semi-decently attractive as an entire cube.
I mean, if you like that sort of look.
hey, man, you know how it is. I went to film school. There were very slim pickings when I went. And I get that too, but she's also in crisis mode because she would listen to her mom pretty much open for a long time. When Picard, who shows up on the ship, goes, "Follow me, come." She goes, "Okay." Maybe she's not has like her reason all the way set. But when it comes to Narek and everything, I mean, I just see this guy as super manipulative from day one. There's nothing really redeeming about him that will let me say, okay, well, let me get the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah, there's many occasions where she's like, I don't trust this guy. I'm pretty sure I don't like him. But look, I don't know.
What's the real name?
I've never been a 39-month-old adult woman, so what can I say?
You're missing out, man.
I mean, you fall for those people of questionable character. I mean, young, impressionable. You're like,
I mean, it's true. Look, even I have a wife, so clearly there is someone out there for even the biggest scoundrel. Let's talk about That's a good word.
Yeah, that is.
It's a Star Wars word. Sorry, everyone. But let's talk about this meditation process, I guess, that I think is called Zalmak, which I believe is one of the members of One Direction, unless I'm mistaken. What did you think about sort of this process that clearly is not for outsiders, but is maybe an uber convenient plot device to move along a show that had not moved well up until this point?
I want to ask Frank first, only because I think it's like a reference to something else, or no? Is it a completely original thing?
I'm not familiar with this.
Neither have I.
Okay,
yeah.
so to me, I felt like it didn't really move the needle for me. It did feel like more like a Chekhov's gun type deal. They're going to establish it now for it to pay off later. I don't know. I was kind of like, okay, that's something.
When you say Chekhov in a Star Trek show, we think of somebody different. I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we think of Pavel Chekhov from Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
So
there
that's
you
who
go.
Chekhov is when you say Chekhov.
Gotcha.
Huh?
The actual
yeah.
linguistic Chekhov.
That's all right. I think, I mean, because we've had the Vulcan mind meld since very early on in the original series.
Correct.
And I guess this isn't the same thing, but you are definitely using it for a storytelling standpoint of like, oh, let's just walk around here and, look around in this memory at the things that you don't want to see. What did you think about that sequence, Frank?
Well, it's interesting because I know it's a not for outsiders Romulan meditation technique. So it given that, I thought it was an individual experience, but Narek was with Soji to be able to guide her to get what he wanted out of this.
Yeah.
Right.
So it only made me think, like, if you were by yourself, how does that whole process work? You're just walking around by yourself, just thinking about things.
Right.
It seemed so. I was.
Yeah, and maybe if you're Romulan, you've sort of gone through some kind of training, or I don't know, maybe there's just a YouTube video you watch in the waiting room that so you just walk around in this circle and you follow the path, and maybe that's why he needed to be there as a guide, because of the fact that, well, not only is she not Romulan, she's not even, an actual sentient being. I mean, I guess I'm being speciesist against the synthetics out here, but to be fair, so, and then that was an interesting sort of the conversation that they had, which is with creepy sister that she can dream, and it's like, well, no, it's not a malfunction. He's so much smarter than her. He's like, no, it's not a malfunction, you idiot. It's the exact opposite of that.
It's seeing those two parts of herself kind of reconcile.
Yeah.
But to her credit, it took her 6 episodes or an enough amount of time to come to that conclusion.
And by the way, so the bit of information that we get from the being inside the dream sequence is it's a planet with 2 moons where it rains a lot. I feel like it's very possible that they're not going to be able to find that planet right away. There might be a couple of planets that fit that bill. Do you think that that's possible, Frank?
I mean, well, we still have 4 more episodes.
Yeah.
I feel like
you think they're going to be there next week?
No, we're not going to be there next week. No, we got to drag it out a little
Warp
bit.
drive's going to break, and Picard's going to have to walk.
Yes.
It's going to be like a Roger Corman movie. 45 minutes of walking. Well, let's talk about where Picard and Soji go to. I think it's not something that even bothered me in the moment, but I could understand if somebody was surprised that she was so trusting of JL at the end of the episode.
Look at you pause to say JL.
That's why I do it. That she was so trusting, because it's like, no, I know your sister. Look, I have this other necklace, and then I think it didn't bother me. I could see if it did. It's just like, you shouldn't trust anybody. But if she's gonna trust Narek, you can certainly trust somebody with a nice face like Sir Patrick Stewart.
Sure.
So I thought it made sense, and I did think it was good to see when she's activated and sort of there's that view between the glass of Narek, because that's when I'm like, oh, okay. So somewhere before episode 10, she's definitely going to kill that guy. That's going to be great. She's probably going to rip him right in half. So that'll be pretty sweet. With one hand, really. It's going to be great. So we do get to see some interesting technology that they have sort of a little workaround from not being able to use the transporter. This Queen's room that basically, What is that thing in City on the Edge of Forever that they jump through? What's the name?
The Guardian.
Is it just the Guardian?
Yeah.
Something, whatever. It felt sort of like that almost. It was like, all right, we've introduced this sort of a concept in Star Trek before. I'll allow it. But I did think it was sort of a cool way to get them off of the Borg cube with that, because you got to figure that if they transported to Rios's ship, they'd probably just blow up that ship, because Narek was completely willing to kill her. I mean, he went right to like, yeah, because you were never real, stupid. All right, I gotta go.
Yeah.
But he had tears outside the room.
Yeah.
He was shedding a Romulan tear.
Yeah. Those aren't real tears. It's like crocodile tears.
Oh man, you don't believe him?
Yeah, no. Somehow I don't believe that guy. I don't know.
But I know the race that the Borg assimilated that technology from is from Voyager.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's fine. I didn't even have a problem with it. I just thought it was kind of a cool thing that they had. And when we know from the coming attractions that Creepy Sister not happy with Hugh for aiding and abetting, as I believe we call that. So before we completely run out of time, I think we did a good job really covering all the beats in the story, even the worthless Raffi contributions. But I think that we should take a moment to engage.
Oh, yeah.
And find the most engaging moments. I know that a lot of times we get engaging lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
Some weeks I find that easy. For me, it's more of an engaging moment, and it is what we were talking about a little bit earlier when JL ends up on the Borg cube and he's having the flashbacks, which is sort of that moment when he thinks that they're surrounding him, and Hugh points out, like, no, they're trying to keep you from falling off here. They're actually protecting you.
Yeah.
I think that the other former Borg, are a lot more accepting of him than I think. He would look at them as adversaries, but they're more like, hey, he's just like us. Like, they're not Borg anymore either. And they see this guy's like, oh yeah, we know you. You're part of the collective, and they don't want him to hurt himself. So I don't know. I found that to be sort of a very engaging moment.
That's a good one.
But you're a series regular, so you don't really have to be marred by your experience of being a Borg, you can come back and look pretty much exactly as you did. So.
Yeah.
Make things better.
You notice he doesn't even have like a scratch around his eye.
It's like Mystique in the last X-Men movie. It's like, you guys are gonna love this one. It involves Raffi.
Of course it does.
Well, when you know,
best character in Star Trek history. Go ahead, Flobo. Go ahead.
Literally, when it's that scene where her friend says, "You know what? I tell you, there's a friend. Never call me back." Now here's Raffi, right? We don't know her entire backstory, but strange son.
We know way too much.
Yeah, she has the whole. She's clean or whatever. I like the fact that she was willing to put the last semblance of her friendship to someone else to help out this mission. I thought it was a pretty cool character layer and depth for Raffi, or Raffaella. But you guys don't.
No, I don't like her, but I do agree that yes, she was willing to. You know, she doesn't seem to have a lot. She doesn't seem to have a lot of chips to call in, but that was one of them that she certainly did. And Frank, what did you find to be an engaging moment?
You know, I'll give it up for Eleanor. I mean, he finally had at least something when he shows up on the Borg cube, disobeys the orders, and I did like the way the episode ends as the doors close, sealing off the Queen's chamber.
Yeah.
And he's saying, you know, please choose to live.
And I did like when Picard was like, I told you not to leave the ship, and he's like, I didn't listen. And he's like, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, all right. I think we got a little bit, you know, deepening of the bond between those two, and well, I hope he survives next episode, because I do think that character has a lot of potential, and if he were to sacrifice himself in the name of the cause next week, I'd be like, oh man, they really didn't do enough with him.
Exactly. So I feel like he's going to stick around for a while,
Yeah.
because to move him off the next episode, that'd be a waste. Like, why did we spend even any time with him?
Yeah, he gets an episode.
I know we're out of time, but I would like to give a prediction, not so much for next week.
AfterBuzz
but
TV prediction.
I was thinking about how this is all going to get resolved. We're going to have a bunch of angry Romulans who are, you know, they maybe all get looped in, and I feel like the Borg who have not been reclaimed and haven't been removed from the collective, I do feel like they're going to get activated, and I do think that they are going to overtake a whole bunch of Romulans, and then that Borg cube's going to be working fine by the end of this season.
I've been intrigued.
That's just a thought. I don't know. Do you have anything that you're predicting throughout the course of the rest of the season? We do have 4 more episodes.
I was saying the opposite, that the artifact would be destroyed at some level. But hey, if there's a battle before that, I'm on board.
Yeah, all right. But, by the way, makes perfect sense if it does end up destroyed.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think, Frank?
I'm going to predict that Riker will sit on a chair that's backwards.
Do you think that there is any chance at some point maybe he'll be upstairs and his son will be calling up and he'll say, "What the hell is going on down there?" I just feel like it's possible, right?
Why not?
There's a decent chance. Anyway, we are out of time for this week. We do hope that Nikki's able to be back with us next week. But if you're watching the archive version, let us know in the comments down below what you think. And make sure to tune in next Thursday at 9 Pacific for Picard Episode 7. Until then, Frank Moran, where can people find you?
My man, Happy Go Jackie, Twitter and Instagram.
Woo!
And Flobo, if people want new content every week, where do they
You
go?
can go to flowpizza.com. New content every week.
And if you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, I don't know why, but if you did, at ChristianDMZ. And you can find me all over AfterBuzz and Popcorn Talk, where you'll see me Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific on Marvel Movie News. Again, that is all the time we have. But until next Thursday, live long and prosper.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.